All right. Hello, everybody. Um, since I've been posting videos online with the PIMAX 8K, I've had a lot of questions as to what my settings are. So I'm going to run through those as quick as possible with you. I am an original backer for the PIMAX 8K. I cannot brag enough about the 8K system and the wide field of view. Flown with a few other VR headsets, just testing them with friends of mine. And yep, PIMAX is where I feel it's at. If you're a DCS player, well worth the extra money to get the headset and have that extra field of view. I know there's some complaints about the customer service with PIMAX. In the early days, yeah, it sucked pretty good. They didn't get back with you. I was one of those backers that didn't get my stuff as early as I should have, but I can tell you the wait was worth it. Is worth everything. I've been flying with this one now for quite a while. Like I said, since it came out, I know there's I believe the 8KX that's out now, which is supposed to have higher clarity in the headset, and I think some better visuals, color, whatnot. But yeah, sacrificing the wide field of view for a cheaper VR headset to me is not worth it. I've had several comments left on my videos, which by far don't compete with three-quarters of the guys recording out there with DCS. I primarily get on there to fly with my buddies and just I don't see a whole lot of VR stuff, so I only fly in VR, and I like to post that stuff for people interested in flying in VR and to show that a lot of the comments I see on the forum that performance sucks or it's not as clear, whatever we see out there, that's not the case. So um, a lot of people want to know what the settings are, so we'll kind of move on to that. But definitely recommend getting the PIMAX. I'm no promoter for them, and just FYI as well, I'm going to brag about ED at some point, I'm sure, in this video. I'm not promoting for them or advertising for them either. I've just been around the block for a while and played about every flight sim out there for the past 40 years. So uh, yeah, I'm fairly experienced in the flight sim area, and man, these guys are at the tip of the spear. So moving on, right now, I recently had a comment that said there's absolutely no way that I would be getting the performance and clarity out of my VR recordings without having the absolute top of the line computer. I've had my computer now for 2 or 3 years. Bought it at Best Buy. I used to build them. Got tired of building it and hoping the BIOS and everything worked correctly the first time you started it up. So this is my first out-of-box computer from Best Buy. Couldn't be happier with it. We'll just jump right into it. It has an Intel i9-9900K. It came with 16 gigs of RAM. I replaced that with 32 gigabytes of the Corsair Dominator Platinum 3200. It was supposed to be the highest brand at the time for gaming, and it hasn't let me down. It's been outstanding. Here's where people were kind of commenting in my videos that there's no way I get the performance I do without having one of the newer NVIDIA 3000 series. False, absolutely false. The NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080 Ti is what I have and what I've been running with. It's still high end uh, um, graphics card and has worked outstanding for me. I think some of the performance issues we see, whether it's a 3000 series or these 2080 Ti's, has to do with just waiting on Vulkan API and some of the VR performance upgrades that are coming here in the not so distant future with DCS. So work on Windows 10, 64-bit. Not sure who uses 32 anymore. If you are, you're in the Stone Age. And then it came with a 1 terabyte SSD hard drive. Um, I will say this, and this is kind of where I'm going to promote the hell out of ED. Um, I bought this computer specifically for DCS World and the 1 terabyte SSD. I don't really play too much else on this computer. It's primarily built for DCS, and I think I mean, it has my OS on there and a few other applications, but DCS is a beast, and this is where I'm going to support ED. I buy all their modules. Every aircraft a third party comes out with, I'm a firm believer in supporting a company that supports their customers, and I couldn't be happier with the third party devs, the material they're putting out, and the material ED puts out, and hence me posting videos all the time, or as much as possible. And it comes back to the 1 terabyte hard drive thing. I know that right now I think I've got roughly 380 gigs left, somewhere around there. And I know the new Atlantic Mac coming out is going to be a hefty one. So eventually I will have to upgrade my solid state drive. I would recommend, if you're in the neighborhood getting a new computer, maybe get a 2 terabyte. And something I started doing that I noticed with the PCs is been playing DCS World since the Black Shark was around, since Lomac was around. And one thing I noticed, starting with Lock On, the very first Lock On, I want to say on average you wind up upgrading your computer with their flight sim roughly about every 5 years. So if you're like me and you don't have an extra $2,500, $3,000 laying around for a top shelf computer, maybe throw 25 to 50 bucks back a month if possible into a separate savings account. And roughly 5 years down the road, when it's ready to, it's time to get a new computer, you got that sitting back. I don't want Eagle Dynamics to reduce the quality of material they're putting out to try to keep up with lower end PCs. I always want them to ride that edge, ride that envelope, and keep it at the tip of the spear. If that requires me to get a new computer 3 or 4 years down the road, then so be it. The stuff they're putting out now is what I always dreamed of playing when I was a kid. So, especially in VR. Those of you who fly in VR, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you who haven't, you have no clue what you're missing out on. The first time you put that headset on and jump into the Huey or the F-14 or now the Apache, especially the Apache with the iHad system and the monocle coming down, man, it's a hell of a time. So that's my baseline computer. We'll jump over here to and I don't want to take credit for everything I'm doing. This took roughly a year and a half or 2 years of toying around with these settings to get where I'm at. I'm by no means perfect or an expert at this. This is just what works for me in DCS. Also, you're probably going to find, if you're not flying with PIMAX, that if you have another headset, you're going to have to set your settings up just a little different. We'll jump into PITOOL here in just a minute to just kind of run through that. But yeah, so somewhere I along the way, I came across a really good article on the forum talking about your NVIDIA settings here. So go into your NVIDIA control panel. Now everything else in here is default. I haven't messed with it. But one thing I did notice that assisted a little was the 3D settings here. If you're running an NVIDIA card, this is what I have on mine. I'm not going to go through them all individually. There's plenty of videos out there discussing what each one does. But primarily, stuff I'm running in game, I would probably turn off in here. I wouldn't try to max it out by increasing everything in here, and then in sim, I would notice a performance hit there. But I'll just kind of scroll through this so y'all can see what my settings are, and then adjust as needed with yours. But I thought this was applicable putting in the video just because some of this stuff, I can't remember, but if the default is set high on some of these, you just may want to go in there and check them just to make sure it's not conflicting with DCS's settings. And somewhere on the forums out there somewhere, someone wrote a really lengthy article about the NVIDIA control panel, which was very helpful. So we'll close this out. There's not a whole lot to say on that one. Go ahead and close this out. Close this out, and then we'll go into OBS real quick. My recording software is OBS. It's the latest version. There was a plugin for the VR. I don't remember what it was called, but if you Google OBS VR plugin, it'll show you the plugin. For those of you who don't know, OBS is a free recording software. Again, kudos to the guys on the forum who discussed this and ran me through rudimentary videos on how to use it. Over the years, it's taken a lot of tweaking to get the sim to where I want it. Right now I'm running in monitor view. I realized in the last video I tried to shoot that it'll black the entire screen out if I go to my DCS settings, but basically you create a scene for DCS. You create a source using the VR plugin. See if it'll actually open VR capture. That's what you want to download right there, open VR capture. If you download open VR capture and you go to the little plus sign here, instead of adding display, you add open VR capture, then you're going to, once you launch DCS World, you'll get the view right here of what you're seeing in game, and you can adjust. I'm not going to adjust this because it'll screw the video up, but right here where you can drag and drop, and you can actually pull this image to where you want. It works really well for how I'm recording right now. A big performance hit if you are flying with OBS and you know how to manipulate it. Again, I'm not going to go into too many details on how to manipulate your image here because there's some pretty good videos out there for DCS and how to do it. But one key thing I realized with OBS, if you're flying DCS just like this and you have the VR plug-in, having this screen, the preview screen active, and having this any bigger than what it is now will affect your performance when recording. So what I've done is disable the preview, and then I will minimize my OBS screen. That's as small as I can get it, and I'll usually just drag it down here and leave it like that. I think I can go through my settings here without screwing up what we're looking at. So if we go to the settings, just a quick run through under general, I left everything default, so anything you adjust in here is going to be on y'all, so I haven't messed with that. I do not stream. I haven't messed with any of this. It's default. The output, I do not believe I've messed with any of this. It's all going to be default. Audio is all default with the exception of right now when I'm recording this video. I had to change my auxiliary. Usually it defaults to my VR headset, so I don't have to mess with that when I'm recording. PIMAX it automatically picks it up because the mic is built into the PIMAX headset. Under video, I can't go and manipulate anything because I'm recording right now, but these are going to be my video settings for PIMAX and for the OpenVR plugin. What I would recommend doing, there's a lot of videos out there kind of talking about this. I don't remember the base canvas resolution versus the output scaled resolution. If I remember correctly, this is what is actually what your headset, I believe, can do. And then this is what you're telling it to record at, if I remember correctly. The 36 samples here, the sharpen scaling, I did not notice a performance hit, so I left that at that just to try to get the sharpest video output possible. I record in 16:9 because that's what my monitor is native at, 1920 by 1080. I do not have a 4K monitor, nothing fancy. And then this, I believe this defaulted at 59.94, which, you know, it's fine, 60 FPS. And then the only other thing I would suggest is under your hotkeys. In DCS, I don't have anything bound for any aircraft to the F11 or F12 key. And when you have the VR headset on, it's real easy to just hit F11 to start recording and F12 to stop. I've gone into every module I have, which is not bragging, but every module that DCS has come out with. I go into every single module I own and I delete these two keys, and that way when I go to start recording, it doesn't take me to some weird external view. Advanced, again, I left all this default. So this is what works for me with OBS. and I've never had any issues with it. For those of you running the PIMAX, I'll just blow through my settings real quick for the PITOOL. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna have to start the headset up real quick to show you all the settings. All right. Let's see if she's statusing here. Now we're not going to see the base stations light up because I don't have them turned on. If they were tracking, these would be blue, which anybody with PIMAX knows. Under settings, so here's a tip. If most of us flying PIMAX probably have already figured this one out, but if you were like me and you were struggling because there's not a lot of good info out there on this, I want to say 2 or 3 versions back when you updated it, and you ran PIMAX, you just double clicked on the PITOOL, it would crash DCS. It wouldn't start. I don't know what the hell the problem was, but one thing I learned out of this, and I should have remembered because I've been around the computers long enough to know this. Anytime I run OBS, PIMAX, and DCS, I always run all 3 of them as administrator. That way I stay up to date with the current version of the software and then the firmware. Every once in a while I'll get a firmware update. I've never had any issues with the firmware. But if you are running PITOOL and PIMAX, I highly recommend running everything as an administrator, including OBS. It just bypasses a lot of nonsense you got to deal with. Hide to the taskbar when you close by. I don't know what the hell that means. It was default. I left it. Same with this shit. Under HMD, of course, tracking is going to be the lighthouses. PIMAX does have the 9-axis internal movement, so for some reason, this is another reason I like PIMAX. If for some reason your lighthouses go out or you're down to 1, whatever the cause may be, you can switch over to the 9-axis and it'll run off the internal, whatever it has in there, motor. I don't know what the hell. I'm not the engineer on this shit, but if you run 9-axis, you won't be able to like lean outside the cockpit and stuff, but you can look all over the place and it works fine. Definitely, obviously, you're going to want the lighthouses because you get the full 6 degrees of freedom, but the light bar, just leave it on. All this is pretty default. Refresh rate, 80 hertz. I've always left it at that. Backlight, all this is default. I'm not going to go into detail on what each one of these do because if you own a PIMAX, if you're like me, you probably want to research the shit out of all this and make sure you're up to speed on it. I will say this right now, field of view, there will be just 2 of them that I really want to touch on. Field of view is one of them. Leave it on normal. If you go to large, you get the screen door effect, the bending at the end of each left and right of your video. Small, I don't know what the hell potato is. That's something new, but small. It's real narrow. Doesn't look good. And when you're recording, leave it on normal, and you'll get awesome video quality. Here's the biggie right here. So, kudos to the person, I forget who it was that I read this online. The render quality in VR. There was something I read that said if you're adjusting it, I can't remember in Oculus Quest and all the other ones if you can do this inside their tool, but at least in PIMAX you can adjust the render quality in the PITOOL to whatever you want here. And I leave mine at 1.5 in the tool. In game, I believe mine's set at 1.0. They definitely will conflict with one another. Someone said that I read online said either adjust the render quality in game and leave this low in the PITOOL, or vice versa, high in the PITOOL and low in the game. One thing I did notice with the PIMAX, it's a lot better to set your render quality in the tool and keep it low in the sim, because for some reason this does not tax the simulator out while you're flying it if you have it set in the PITOOL. I highly recommend using the PITOOL to adjust that and not the sim, and you should have a lot better performance. Anytime I bump this up in sim with the headset, you get the staggering and stuff. Now, mind you, that was at least a year and a half ago. I've been doing it this way since. fixed foveated rendering. I've always left it closed. I used to toy around with this when I first started playing back in the day, and if you watch some of my older videos, you'll see they stagger a lot. Got to brag about DCS World a little real quick. Again, Eagle Dynamics has done a fantastic job in the recent patches getting VR performance to a level or to a point that, at least for me, with the settings I'm showing you, is a fantastic experience. You get in game on multiplayer servers with a lot of assets in the air, a lot of assets on the ground, a lot of shit going on, and you bump the clouds up. Yeah, that's where Vulkan API, the new graphics engine, and all that shit's going to come into play and help tremendously with VR. But if you're not trying to launch World War III or invade France with a ton of B-17s and a ton of air assets, you should be pretty good. And even then, I have the Blue Nose Bastards campaign. The VR historically runs a lot better in single player than it does on multiplayer. You have to find a good server with low ping and all the shit y'all probably already know to get it to run where you would want it to run. But or single player, I've had a lot of really fantastic experiences with the World War II campaigns. The only thing I remember having an issue with is, and we'll get into it when I show you all my DCS settings, is the wake turbulence. We can talk about that in a minute. Knock this out. The rest of the shit, I leave it off. I don't mess with any of this. The only time I have to turn this one on right here that says needs restart for Steam VR. For those of you with PIMAX, if you're trying anything in Steam VR, or I mean in Steam, you need to have this on. Now, this does bring up one thing. PIMAX has to run off Steam VR. I always run DCS World as a standalone product. I do not buy anything through Steam for DCS World. I've always had it as a standalone. I think it absolutely runs better that way. And there's a lot less conflict with stuff. You have to wait less time for stuff to pop up on the Steam store and all that shit. So I can't recommend enough running DCS World by itself. And I always run open beta because it's just how I roll. I like all the new stuff. So, but when I automatically launch DCS World, Steam VR automatically launches. I do not need this selected, but if you're playing some VR game in Steam, you gotta have that selected and restart everything and all that. It's just shit. So the rest of the stuff is all gonna be default, and that's it. That's it for my PIMAX setting. We'll go ahead and turn this off and shut that down. We'll go ahead and launch DCS World real quick. Run as the administrator. Yes. And then while DCS is firing up, what I was going to say about the wake turbulence, one thing I did notice on the forum, someone had posted a really good article about this, that the wake turbulence flying modern day aircraft and VR works fine. And it is one hell of an experience, especially in any of the jets where you're doing refueling, especially with any of the naval aviators out there in the basket, tanking up with a Viking or the KC-130s. Man, that wake turbulence is awesome to have to deal with when you're trying to refuel. But one thing I read on the forum was the simulator has to compute all the wake turbulence for all the engines operating in the game at one time. And the only problem I've had with that in VR is in the Blue Nose Bastards campaign. There was I can't remember what mission it was, but you're escorting a squadron of B-17s across the channel. And you get up to altitude and link up with them, and everything was going great, man. It was one hell of an experience. I mean, seeing all this in VR and so many assets, everything running well. And I don't know if it's been fixed, but the AI got a little too close to one of the B-17s, and all the fucking dominoes came falling out of the sky, man. One of them crashed into the other one, and then it became such a jittery mess that I had to shut the whole shit down and restart. And it's the only time I've run into it, but I had wake turbulence going at the time. And they said when you get that many assets close together, all the computations it requires to uh, compute the wake turbulence for every single one of those engines and the aircraft behind each other and so on and so forth is really taxing. So that being said, I still fly with wake turbulence with the World War II stuff. However, if I'm going to play one of the campaigns and there's going to be a lot of assets with the World War II stuff, sometimes I turn it off just to avoid that kind of issue if I'm recording. One thing I will say in VR that I definitely notice, especially online, definitely online, performance, depending on the ping and the server, performance in your VR headset will vary if you're recording or not. Sometimes it'll take a little longer to load. Sometimes it'll jitter all to shit, especially if there's a lot going on and the ping's moderate. And you have to shut the video down, and then all of a sudden everything snaps to, and you're good to go in VR. But I will say recording in at least with OBS, because I haven't recorded with anything else, it definitely can cause some performance issues at times online, not in single player. Single player is good to go. So we'll roll through all my settings here, hopefully relatively quickly. I'm not going to go through all these and explain them. Anybody who's played DCS and is looking to improve performance should have already kind of looked at all this and tried to figure it out. But these are personal preference. Again, this is what I have found to maximize the visual effects inside the headset and keep my performance running smooth as hell. So textures and terrain, textures are a must for me. I love flying the helos, especially the Apache now it's out, so I have to keep those on high. A lot of these let's see if we can find one here, like right here, the visible range. I would love to run this at Ultra or Extreme. I'm really hoping once Vulkan API and some of the other improvements that they're working on for VR, I'm hoping once that hits the scene that I'll be able to bump this up. But right now I find this the sweet spot. If I go down to medium, the trees auto-populate not fast enough for me. I don't like flying and then having the trees like kind of popping up as I'm flying along. So I run this on high and it works fine. Heat blur always have off. Shadows, another must for me. They got to be on high. Some people don't care, but for me, the cockpit shadows, especially in the helos and the World War II stuff, are really all of them, man, just fantastic. And VR, it'll blow your mind with the immersion and the effects that it has on you, especially with the clouds and everything they got going on. Secondary shadows, I have not tried this out yet. This is I don't know what this is. It's something new. I haven't even looked at what it does yet. I just noticed when I recorded my first video and messed it up that this was in there, so I'm gonna have to check this out and see what it is. We won't read it to waste time right now, but resolution, always run it at what my monitor is. I will say that there is some good information out there that I used to run this at the lowest setting, which would have been 1280 by 768. I stopped doing that because what happened is, just like with the enable preview in OBS, if you ran this at a smaller resolution, it's less at or at least what I read was it was less performance that the computer has to deal with. But over the last 2 or 3 patches, what I've noticed is I don't see a degradation in performance when running it at full screen. And the main reason I went back to full screen was it is a pain in the ass when you're playing in VR and you go to move your cursor to click on something or shoot with the door gunners on the Huey and you're moving the 60 around, and then all of a sudden your cursor's out of the screen and you're just getting all fucked up. So yeah, I always leave this at full screen resolution now, and I haven't had an issue with my cursor leaving the screen since then. Aspect ratio, default, that's what it defaults to for my VR headset. Monitors clear. Resolution of cockpit, I've always always ran on 1024 for every frame. It's never hit my performance at all. I've tried just seeing if I get more by lowering it, and for me, this is where the money's at. MSA, again, it's one of those things I'd like to bump up at some point when performance increases, but this is the sweet spot. Now, depth of field, you don't need it in VR. I mean, this is great for guys shooting videos that aren't in VR, doing all the cool guy stuff with the videography, but for VR, it's kind of pointless. Lens effect, this one's a must for VR. Dart and flare. I'm an idiot for the longest time until I posted it on the forum, and I can't remember if it was Big Nui or it was one of the boys at ED was like, hey, enable the flare. I'm a dumbass. I didn't realize that was the sun. Man, absolute must for those of you that are like me and didn't realize that was a thing. This enables the sun to oh shit, he's in the sun. What's he doing? It's awesome, especially in World War II stuff. I've had multiple moments like that now that I have this enabled. It's a must having that on there. Motion blur, it's horseshit in VR. You don't need it. Clouds, this is a biggie. You will see performance increase if you go to standard. But in VR, if you want to have your minds blown, leave them on high. If you really want to have them blown and lower your performance, go to ultra. But I'm again hoping once the VR enhancements come along, I can bump that up to ultra without any hit. SSA, SSAA, and SSLR, I leave them off. It is a pretty nasty hit, and the same with SSAO. These kind of personal preference on all this. The only one I'll really talk about is preload radius. I like to have all my stuff loaded in game once I get in VR, just so there's nothing I've read out there, but I've found that performance-wise, I prefer this over it trying to load while I'm playing. Logic says that if you've preloaded a lot of shit before you're in game, that it would run smoother, so I just leave it at this. The filtering here, I've always run it at 16 and never had a problem. I like crisp cockpits, and in VR it's essential to be able to read what you're looking at. Not necessarily to sacrifice performance, but man, again, it's the sweet spot. Terrain object shadows, I leave them off just because for me they're not quite there yet, and it definitely hits performance, so I leave that off. Global illumination I have on. It's awesome. Works great, especially for World War II birds and well, really anything at night. It's awesome. This stuff is default. Rain droplets, obviously those got to be on. VSync and full screen, I just leave these off because my resolution's at full screen. I don't know what this would do necessarily. This cursor confined to game window. Even when I had this minimized to the lowest resolution and had this checked, my cursor would still go outside the window, so I don't know what the hell this does or what good it does, but I just leave it checked just because. Overall, that's my system settings. We don't really need to worry about control settings. Gameplay settings, there's really nothing in here that's affecting performance, so I'll kind of let y'all flow through that on your own. The miscellaneous, I think the only thing in here that you're going to see that might affect settings is the show pilot body and cockpit. Again, this one for me personally is a must for VR players. It really puts you in the zone for immersion, and I think that anybody playing in VR should have this on. And I've assigned the P key, the Papa key, to turn the pilot body on and off. I just have it memorized where it's at on the keyboard by feel. So yeah, definitely recommend that. That way, if you start to take any kind of hit on performance, you just hit P. I might have missed. I said nothing in here. I lied. Wake turbulence and mirrors. So under gameplay, mirrors are a must for me personally. Stuff like the F-14, where you have gesture in the back and being able to see yourself, and then the P51 in VR, especially the Spitfire in VR. These are a must. You actually utilize the shit out of the mirrors in the World War II birds. So for me in VR, it's a must. Wake turbulence, again, we kind of discussed that earlier. I leave it on now. But as far as a performance hit and the gameplay screen, I think those are the only two. Audio, you're not going to see any performance hits. Don't think there's anything in here we need to go through. And then this is the last one, the biggie for VR. Here's what I was talking about with pixel density. You have to have, obviously, your headset enabled. And then I leave my pixel density at 1.0. I don't run it any higher, and I use the mouse to click on everything. One thing that was a must for me and really important was the ability to learn where all the switches were and everything and memorize it without having to hover the cursor over it and have it tell me. So yep, I disabled that, and I just use the mouse, and I go through the startup process, all of that, using the mouse. Hopefully one of these days when they get the camera set up to where it'll recognize the hands and you have the Nomex gloves and all that, it'd be pretty shit hot to be able to push the buttons and everything and flip them and turn them without having to use the mouse. One of these days, that's the big dream, right? Right now it's not quite there, so I keep using the mouse to manipulate everything. I don't bind every single thing to my joystick and throttle like some others do. Right now I'm flying with a Thrustmaster HOTAS Warthog and some Thrustmaster rudder pedals. I'm no sponsor for them, but I can't brag enough about them. Absolutely shit hot stuff. I've had the throttle now probably 15 years. My old man passed it down to me, and this thing's still going strong. And yeah, it's good stuff. But let's see, VR mirror options, use DCS resolution. I don't know what the difference is if you uncheck that or not. I just leave it checked. Then here's the last big one. Mirror eye source. So the right eye, I used to have this on left eye. If you don't have right eye selected, it will not record the IHAD symbology or your JHMIC symbology for the Apache or the A10C2. I can't remember if on the F-18 if it's one or two eyes. I think it's both eyes. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think it's both eyes. But whatever module you're flying with, any kind of JHMICs or IHADs, you're going to have that in right eye if you're recording, or it won't pick it up. And that the same goes for OBS settings. You're going to have to record out of the right. Actually, I may be lying to you guys. I think it's OBS. It's OBS settings that you have to have the right eye selected. I've just left this on right eye, but I lied to you guys. It's OBS that has to have the right eye selected. Other than that, gentlemen, ladies, gents, that's how I have everything set up to record in VR. For those of you who are wanting to know what I was set up in, again, I can't show you because I'm recording with this monitor view and not the VR plugin. But in the VR plugin, you can select which eye you wanna record from, and just make sure you select the right eye. Beyond that, if anybody ever has any questions, you can leave comments in the video description here in the comments section on YouTube, and be glad to get back with you and give you any pointers. Maybe someday here in the near future I'll do an intro about myself. Briefly, I do work in the military aviation industry with the U.S. government. Love it, and I grew up around it, and been around F4s, F14s, F18s, 16s, 35s, all that stuff. Especially the F4s and the F14s since I was a kid. And yep, my old man worked at Aerospatiale Helicopter, and prior to all the nonsense going on this day and age. Back in the day, prior to terrorist attacks and everything, as a kid, I remember being able to walk out on the flight line with my dad when he was working maintenance as a mechanic, and he knew all the pilots. And I remember as a kid them taking us up. I've been up quite a bit in 350s, 355s, Pumas, Dolphins. If anybody from ED's listening to this, I'm going to keep begging until the day I die for Eagle Dynamics to come out with a Panther module. Polychop's almost there, man. They got the sound down with the Finistron on the Gazelle. I know there's a lot of Gazelle haters out there, but I grew up with the company, and man, it was halfway there. It was halfway dream come true with the Gazelle coming out, but really hoping to see the Panther or the Dolphin make the scene someday. I think it'd be a good light attack helicopter to bring to the table on the French side. They have a lot of cool stuff. Puma too. I'm all about the Super Puma, and the Puma would be an awesome one. But yep, I appreciate y'all listening. Hopefully this answers a lot of the questions y'all had about my performance and why my VR videos look so good to y'all. I think I'm my worst critic, so appreciate everybody viewing them. If y'all like it, yeah, I'm gonna say this shit like everybody does on YouTube. Subscribe, and if not, I hope y'all just keep enjoying the random content I'm putting out, and we'll keep it coming, especially as new modules and stuff come out. Thank you.